And welcome to a post-Super Bowl edition of Madden and Benz Unfiltered. Tim Benz and Mark Madden with you. We're brought to you by Bella Construction with 27 years of experience specializing in roofing, siding, windows, and doors. Their large purchasing power means unbeatable prices and top quality. For a free estimate, call 724-515-5163 or visit mybellaRoof.com. Bella Construction, where quality and affordability meet. No three-peat for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Philadelphia Eagles blow them out in the Super Bowl, 40-22, and it wasn't even that close. Mark, I got to tell you, in the hours since the Super Bowl has ended, I am incredibly impressed with Steelers truthers and their ability to morph what happened with the Eagles and somehow use that as a justification for how the Steelers try to play football. It's impressive.
Well, as I've been saying, I know that the Steelers are trying to do what the Eagles didn't have the type of team the Eagles have the outlier team, the running team, the power team. But comparing what the Eagles have and what the Steelers have, I mean, the attempt doesn't matter if you're not any good at it. And to compare what these two teams have is like comparing gourmet ice cream to fresh, steaming horse manure. And the Steelers are nowhere close to assembling that kind of team because there's no shortcut. You have to have literally all the components, which the Eagles do, and they're great at assembling. They're great at stockpiling. They're great at managing their roster. And maybe if the Steelers should be inspired by anything the Eagles do, they should take the GM duties away from that bean counter Omar Khan and put a football guy in charge, namely Andy Weidel, who helped assemble this Eagles team when he was in their front office.
The converse of this is, all the Steelers critics, and hey, I'm all about being willing to criticize the Steelers. Not enough people are. But to try to justify your criticism by pointing out that Kenny Pickett kneeled out the game doesn't exactly work. Hey, he gets a Super Bowl ring, a really, really tiny Super Bowl ring. That's good for him. But I'm not going to use that as any part of the pros and cons as to what went on with the Steelers this year.
Tim, they have an extra toddler-sized ring available from a few years back when I don't know, maybe they expected Phil Rivers to win it, and they had like rings made up for all 10 of his kids. I don't know, but yeah, record set for smallest hands to win a Super Bowl. Pickett accomplished nothing. The water boy gets a ring too. I thought Pickett's performance was a microcosm of what he did with the Steelers. 3 handoffs and incompletion. Scared football. Not that he had to go out there and score points for the Eagles, or that the case, they would not have won. Actually, what I've been laughing about in particular, as they try to draw parallels between the Steelers and Eagles. Oh, if we had drafted Hurts instead of Chase Claypool, yada, yada. If Jalen Hurts was the quarterback of the Steelers right now, they would be better, but they still would not win a playoff game. Hurts is not elite. He's a product of his environment and did very good last night and was a worthy Super Bowl MVP. But he is not elite. People saying that all the haters were wrong. First off, I'm not sure that he had many haters. Second off, he's still not elite. He's not Mahomes. He's not Lamar. He's not Allen. He did win a Super Bowl. So did Doug Williams. So did who was the bunny guy with the Ravens? Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, and Nick Foles with the Eagles. That's another example that you can pull from that city. But yeah, I think there's 4 guys who are in that elite class. They're all in the AFC. 2 of them are in the Steelers division, and Burrow and Jackson. That's Allen and Mahomes. Then I think you've got Jalen Hurts up there in that next cut with the likes of probably Jaden Daniels going into his second year, Jared Goff, basically everybody else who made the playoffs.
Right.
Justin Herbert.
Right.
The problem is, Mark, you can't.
Well, not everybody, Tim. The Steelers made the playoffs too.
You can't use the phrase, okay, he's not elite, but he's a Pro Bowler, because the Pro Bowl doesn't mean anything. There's no second tier of compliment you can put those guys in.
Hold on, I got to interrupt. How about that Super Bowl commercial where they tried to say that girls are better than boys at football?
Oh, yeah, the flag football. This is all part of Roger Goodell's agenda to normalize flag football so that eventually quarterbacks can wear flags.
Let's play full contact, Tim. Let's play real football. Let's see how good the girls are then.
Well, there was that one, and I guess I didn't see this live, but there was because I was watching it on streaming. I was watching it on Tubi, but I guess there was a local law group that took a shot at Tomlin in a local commercial. Did you see that where you were?
No, but I wish.
I think it was Romano Law Group that did something like made some joke about legal efforts to fire a head coach who hasn't won a playoff game in 8 years.
I don't like it. I love it. But the best commercial, Tim, the Dun Kings.
You like that one? I thought that was kind of a hot mess this time.
Loved it. Loved it. I hope Jeremy Strong finds his character.
I thought you were going to say seal. Seal as a real seal.
That was okay.
I mean, that one was mocked all over the internet. The best part about that one was John Hamm in the meme from Mad Men saying, okay, he's a seal, but he's a real seal. Like he was doing the pitch meeting for it from Mad Men, which was pretty good.
See, I think that Affleck is brilliant at just being an ass. Like letting his guard down and not caring how he looks and thickening up the Boston accent and bringing in Belichick. I mean, just come on, Tim. Come on. That's brilliance.
The girlfriend looks just like Katy Perry, doesn't she?
Was that the Belichick girlfriend in the commercial?
I think it is, or it might have been Katy Perry, but they look exactly alike. I saw her somewhere else during the course of the week over the Super Bowl awards party. I thought he was standing with Katy Perry.
I always loved Katy Perry, so big ups.
Mark, we got to talk about Juju Smith-Schuster and how he almost won me money, but intentionally did not. That's the big fix. The fix was in. Juju got right up to his number and then stopped catching footballs and refused to get open.
Well, he's never had much trouble refusing to get open.
That was part of the problem for the Chiefs, by the way, because Mahomes managed to avoid that rush a lot and extend plays. And even when the play broke down, he didn't have anybody to flip the football to except for one time to Travis Kelce. Nobody got open for him as well on the back end. I think everybody's paying attention, rightfully so, to how great of a job the pass rush did for the Eagles, but the back half of the defense is real good too.
Well, how about the Eagles didn't blitz once and still had Mahomes under constant pressure? And I know the Steelers think they can do that, but the Chiefs don't try to do it with Benton and Ogunjobi. They have much better players. So the notion that the Steelers can do what the Eagles do when the difference between the personnel, I mean, the Steelers lacking so much in talent, just absurd discussion.
Yeah, and the Steelers also try to do it with two outside linebackers and two down linemen. The two outside linebackers trying to rush wide of the quarterback all the time and eluding chip blocks and tight ends and pulling their pass rush to the back half of the pocket all the time. Whereas the Eagles just throw four guys right at you and in your face.
Well, once the Steelers get Aaron Rodgers, Tim, they'll have their elite quarterback, and they'll win it all.
Yeah, I mean, if you look to all the reports over the weekend, they're going to get Aaron Rodgers, they're going to get Deebo Samuel, they're going to get Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. They're going to have all three of those guys at quarterback.
Well, no, aren't Rodgers and Deebo, aren't the Steelers the betting favorites to get both of them?
I don't know about betting favorites, but I saw CBS Sportsline put something out that they were the first team listed for both of those guys.
Yeah, and they never get nobody. They're the favorites to get everybody, and they never get nobody. This will be – the Deebo thing will be like Ayuk part 2. But I will say, Tim, and I pray it happens, they might be just dumb enough to get Rodgers.
Dumb enough or desperate enough?
I think Rodgers ain't going to have no place else to go. And the Steelers will say, okay, the Jets are going to pay him all that money, just like the Broncos paid Russ. We can get him for the veteran minimum. It's Aaron Rodgers. It's a bone to throw the fans. It would solve nothing. He made the Jets worse. And it's tough to make the Jets worse. But I'll tell you what, Tim. It'll be the feud of the century. The super genius against Aaron Rodgers. And let me tell you something. I've had people tell me if he came here, he would have no idea who you were and he wouldn't acknowledge you. It'd take about 10 days before both happened. I guarantee it. That sumbitch has rabbit ears, and he and I would go head to head.
Mark, it's like every quarterback now who's potentially available, the Steelers are being spoken about as if they're last chance saloon. It's funny. It's like everybody wants to continue to prop up the organization as this model of consistency that's just missing a quarterback, but yet nobody who's a quarterback who's even in the mid to third tier of quarterbacks in the NFL wants to come here to prove that. Like, Schefter's report was the latest one to suggest that Fields is probably going to sniff around, see if he gets a better look somewhere else. Why wouldn't he, based on how things went this season? Russ, I think, is kind of in that same boat. And then, like you just said, Rodgers is only going to wind up here if he's got nowhere else to go. It was kind of like what happened with Russell Wilson.
I think Russ is going to wind up either in Pittsburgh or Vegas. I think Vegas is the only other option because of Carroll, but I don't think he showed anything to warrant, him getting pursued by many teams. Fields is another case because he's younger. He is the type of quarterback that people want in the NFL now, the Lamar type. And I think the Steelers needed to decide, like, as soon as the season was over, what to do at quarterback. And then if it was one of these two, tie him up right away. I think every day that's passed makes it more likely they'll have a totally new quarterback room again next year.
Yeah, at least with Fields, you can sell hope. He got a little bit better here in the 6 games that he played. He could be much better now that he's 25 and we give him the keys to the car and we fully design an offense around him.
But they won't do that, Tim. They won't give him the keys to the car. They'll dumb him down. And he knows that. He has to know that.
Well, that's why
his agent does.
That's why all those reports are coming out about him not wedding himself to Pittsburgh right away and seeing if he can find somewhere else. It's that exact line of thinking.
How long until we admit that this organization doesn't know what it's doing? It doesn't know what it's doing. The president, the GM, the coach, none of them know what they're doing. They think they can just show up, be the Steelers, and that's enough. It's not. They look at the wrong big picture. The only big picture they're looking at is that they went 10-7 last year. That's the big picture they prefer. That's the big picture that justifies their method. They're not looking at 8 years without a playoff win. They're not looking at 5 losses to end the season. They're seeing the big picture they want to see, and it's the wrong big picture.
Well, I can tell you that the Debo side of things is that he would come here because he knows Arthur Smith will use him in the way he's tried to use Cordell or Patterson, but they can't even keep Patterson on the field.
Yeah, I don't know why Debo Samuel would want to come to Pittsburgh. And I don't know why the Steelers would think a 29-year-old receiver would solve anything.
He's not what he used to be, that's for sure. They'd be getting him on the downside. And, boy, it's more of an indication of how far the Niners have fallen as much as anything else, given the way their season went. I know a lot of that was injury, but, hey, look, the Steelers have to get a wide receiver somewhere. And if they do get Debo, they can still trade Pickens and then use number 1 or number 2 pick on a wide receiver and then another one on defensive lineman. But they've got to improve both. They can't. There's not enough spots in the draft for them to substantively improve every hole that they have.
Right, Tim, because the acumen they've shown in assembling a roster and dealing with personnel indicates that such a series of moves would be easy for them to accomplish.
No, they've driven themselves into a wall on all these fronts. They have.
Tim, again, I can't emphasize strongly enough. They don't know what they're doing. And what makes them more dangerous is that they think they really do know more than most what they're doing. How long is it going to be before somebody like on Get Up or First Take says, you know what? These guys are idiots. What were we thinking?
I mean, one of the few guys who's ever willing to criticize them like that is Kyle Brandt on the NFL Network. He does from time to time. But, I mean, if you're talking nationally, it rarely happens.
I think the important thing to recognize is that I've been right about this all along, for years. Me, the super genius, Mark Madden, that's who.
I mean, it's so bad for the Steelers right now, Mark. They can't even go out and get Tommy Pham to cure everything because he's already signed with the Pirates.
Here's something weird before we go on, Tim. The way, am I tilted? When you were a kid, did you see the Batman TV series with Adam West?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the Joker's hideout. How they roll diagonally?
You mean because, the angle at which your phone kind of makes it look like the cupboards behind you.
I feel like I'm like this.
No, go the other way.
Like that?
Well, now you froze.
Something's wrong here.
No, I mean, it looks fine. The cabinets look a little tilted behind you, probably because of the angle of where your phone is. That's all. Or either that or your foundation is ruined and you're going into the river. One or the other.
I think it might be that I woke up 90 seconds before I started doing this.
Mark, how about the Penguins? The Four Nation tournament's come. There's a long break for them. What's the story on Sid, his injury, and his playing status for the tournament? What do you think is going to happen there?
Well, first off, Tommy Pham, didn't he slap that dude, that Jock Peterson, over a fantasy football argument?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah.
Okay, that's the only thing I know about him. So he can't be that good of an acquisition. The Penguins, I mean, Tim, they were the 6th pick in the draft not long ago. Now they're 11th. What are they thinking?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I know the lottery can adjust that, but what are they thinking?
Yeah, it's not right. It's not a one-for-one thing, but hey, if Gino doesn't come back and Sid's out for a while, then I think all that will take care of itself. But they do have the break.
You know what's weird about this whole thing is the Raquel situation combined with the Sid situation. Because Raquel's never going to have more value than right now. He's like the number 6 goal scorer in the league right now. But you don't want to trade him out from under Sid when Sid's trying to do the point per game thing. But if Sid's out for the rest of the year, he already has the point per game thing locked up. Not that I think he is, but I mean, maybe he should be if you get my drift. But he ain't that kind of guy.
Yeah,
Mario
I
would be that kind of guy.
I can't see him on an injury that's healable for him to just kind of sit on the fence and watch a season of his career go by, or 3 months of his career go by.
Well, then you can't trade Raquel because while I have very little doubt that Sid will finish his career in Pittsburgh, the only way that could change is if he felt betrayed.
And you would think in your calculus there that him signing the deal that he signed, he would feel betrayed if they took his winger away?
I think he would feel betrayed if they sabotaged his pursuit to average a point a game for the 20th straight season, which would eclipse Gretzky. I don't think many numbers mean much to Sid, and certainly none do more than winning. But a record that exemplifies consistency strikes me as one potentially important to him.
Speaking of Gretzky, my God, Ovechkin's going to empty net his way to this thing before we know it.
I love it. He could, Tim, I believe the last game of the season is Washington at Pittsburgh.
Oh, he's going to get it before that, don't you think?
I hope not.
That make for great theater, that's for sure. Is he done playing Fleury, by the way?
I think he is. How close is he now?
16?
That's still, Tim, that's still a lot of goals in, 30 games maybe? Less than that, it's hardly automatic. It's hardly even likely. I think he's more likely to get it next year. Although, like you said, with the empty nets, here's what he needs to break it this year. He needs, within the next 4 or 5 Washington games, like a hat trick or a 4-goal game. Because then he would leapfrog, and it would really allow him to smell the blood. So that's what, to me, would have to happen for him to do it this year.
Eric says, again, Philly proves it can fire a coach and succeed again within a relatively short amount of time. It's breathtaking how obstinate the Steelers are, even in the face of evidence that change can be beneficial. It's asinine how they just have to do it their way and expect improvement. They're more proud of how they do things than the results that they reap. That's more important. Their method is more important than their results.
That's a way of saying what I've always said, which is they would rather be right than win.
Brian says Tomlin saw that game last night, and it's now a guarantee that they draft a D lineman in the first round. Wide receivers be damned. Well, let's also keep in mind that Philadelphia has 2 excellent wide receivers, and they both scored touchdowns last night.
Well, yeah, every Steeler media guy, when the game was, taking its inevitable course toward Philly winning by way of dominating in the trenches, they were all tweeting, I guess they should draft a defensive lineman, huh? Yeah, I guess they should. But you need to score points, too, and their receiver room is barren. I mean, there's so many holes to fill here, and they're not close. That's the one thing that we need to get out of our heads, and the Steelers need to get out of theirs. They're not close to anything. I don't think they'll make the playoffs next year. I think the potential is there to not have a winning season or they might have a losing season for the first time in the Tomlin regime, but that's really a Ben streak anyway. But they're not close. People think they're close. Yeah, draft a D lineman. They'll be okay. Nah, they'll still be crap.
Well, it's not, draft the D lineman. Yeah, sure, go ahead, but you need to draft multiple. I mean, like the Eagles have a ton of those guys and they rotate them all. It's about a core, it's about a unit. And you don't have a starting wide receiver besides Pickens. And if you trade Pickens, then you need two. You don't have a number one running back right now. You need to get one of those.
Well,
Your offensive line.
Dulac thinks they're going to sign Najee.
I saw that last week. I mean, jeez. Then you really are just bringing everybody back and rebooting the whole thing.
I know. And whatever defensive lineman you draft won't be Jalen Carter. Like people act like, yeah, we'll just do it like the Eagles. Hey, that's real easy to do, to assemble a team like that.
The Steelers may want to become the Eagles, but because they live in their fears, they likely will never at least do that anytime soon.
Well, I don't know. I don't think the Eagles live in their fears. I mean, they won the game with Jalen Hurts being the centerpiece of the offense. Saquon had not even 100 yards total offense, which sucks because my bet was Eagles parlayed with him to go over 112 yards rushing.
Eric says the David Beckham, Matt Damon commercial was pretty good. The end where Beckham referenced Affleck got a chuckle out of me. I was thinking about this, Mark. Somebody tweeted it out too. Like, can you imagine spending all that money and getting your commercial in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl when it's a blowout like that and people have turned their TVs off?
You know what else I wonder about too? I thought Kendrick Lamar was just horrible. What little I paid attention. I thought, Tim, I think he was lip syncing. When all you do is mumble, why would you feel the need to lip sync?
Well, I can't really critique the Super Bowl halftime show because I'm officially at the age now where I'm way too old and it's not my genre of music to even know what's going on.
Oh, no. Me too. I just kind of dropped in here and there. But here's the thing. Football fans, the NFL fans, the dyed in the wool, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's millions, billions of them. And they don't want to see Kendrick Lamar. They don't want to see Taylor Swift on camera all the time either. And she wasn't very much, mercifully. But the NFL, caters to Kendrick Lamar and puts Taylor Swift on camera because they think that gets new and different viewers. And I bet it does. But do those new and different viewers stick around as football fans after that? I doubt it. And how many football fans do you chase away because of that? For the short or long run? I don't know. But if I were them, I'd consider that, wouldn't you?
Well, they pander to the moment. That's what they do. They are prisoners of the moment, and they just try to seize the moment and glom off of it.
And Kendrick Lamar apparently dissed Drake. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the history between the two, and that was the big hook.
And people were saying, oh, he dissed Drake. He killed Drake. Drake's dead. And I'm going, okay, I didn't notice that. What the frig are you talking about? I mean, the majority of people have no idea about that beef or care.
This is Ron who says, how was Cody Glass a number one pick for Vegas? Yeah, sometimes they don't just – well, Robert Damay was a number one pick for the Penguins. So, I mean, that stuff happens.
Phil Tomasino, the now dearly departed slabhead, Jesse Puljujarvi.
Jay says, who are the Steelers –
Tim, to be fair, one thing we overlook, and this is in every sport, most of the number one picks don't work out. Most don't. And certainly very few are actual stars. Even with the number one picks, first rounders, any sport, it's a crapshoot.
Jay says, who are the Steelers going to draft? I'm hoping for a defensive end Cam Hayward can mentor before he retires. Well, that was supposed to be Benton.
Yeah, I don't care who they draft.
They need a replacement for Cam in the future. They need a replacement for Ogunjobi likely this year, and they potentially could need a replacement for Benton if he just continues to be an average, decent but not good defensive lineman.
Tim, here's the problem with the Steelers, and they are many and they are great, okay? There's a lot of holes to fill, right?
Yeah.
Let's say in the next two drafts, they fill all drafts and free agency, they miraculously fill all the holes. Perfect case scenario, it would take two drafts and free agencies. Don't you agree? To fill all the holes.
Yes.
Okay. Then Cam retires and Watt's washed up. You know what I mean? They're in a situation where
Minka would be a year out from his contract too by that point.
Exactamundo. The more holes they fill, the more open up. That's why they're in that vicious cycle, the mushy middle.
Brian says, if Tomlin and his staff are coaching the Eagles, do they win the Super Bowl? If you answer no, Tomlin is not even a good coach.
I never bothered to consider it. When I say I don't care about the Steelers, I mean, I got to some because I talk about them every day, which I'm trying to cut down on, by the way, because they're not worth discussion, especially right now. But the reason I don't care is because I have no faith in the organization. I have no faith in what they're doing. And I think with any fan, once you stop believing, it's a lot easier to lose interest, don't you?
Yeah, I think the answer to that question is Mike Tomlin ever going to have coordinators good enough to get him into that position in the first place? And the answer is probably no. I'm not seeing any evidence that would be the case.
Did somebody, Chuck Pagano signed to coach somewhere, didn't he?
Did he sign a coach or be a consultant somewhere?
Well, whatever. I mean, Pat McAfee's show now has a bigger coaching tree than Tomlin.
Well, the big thing with Tomlin, everybody's trying to say, okay, Tomlin has a coaching tree now because Larry Foote and Antoine Randall are getting gigs.
McAfee wasn't really omnipresent during the Super Bowl, was he?
Well, he's in that commercial.
Yeah, the flag football one, right? He was the principal?
He was the principal, yeah.
Yeah, but that had to be pointed out to me. It was nice to get a break from Pat.
I mean, it wasn't his network. So, I mean, like Fox wasn't going to embrace his presence there. I think he was broadcasting outside of the dome somewhere during the week.
And I didn't, right, because God forbid the guy in the cowboy hat wouldn't get a chance to freeload. I wonder if he got a vote for Super Bowl MVP. But, yeah, I didn't watch any of the pregame on any station. My first exposure to Super Bowl coverage was at 6:20, roughly.
The only thing that was really memorable to me from the pregame was the weird AI Jimmy Johnson thing that they did where they took Jimmy through the years and kind of walked him through his career. Nobody knew why they were doing it until they got to the end. And Kurt Menefee, like 7 minutes into this thing, said, "So, Jimmy, you're retiring?" And he goes, "We'll see, Kurt." Like, okay.
If I were in charge of those shows, the various, pregame, halftime, yada, yada, some of the old dudes got to go.
Well, Bradshaw says he wants to stay through the next Super Bowl with Fox, and that would get him to, what do you say, 79 years old or something like that?
Yeah, he got to go. He got to go. There's no bigger fan of Terry Bradshaw than I am. He got to go. Jimmy Johnson got to go. You can't have old, nearly dead guys out there all the time. They got to go.
How are the 59-cent wings, Mark? That was the big attraction aside from you yourself. So how were they?
Delightful. Delightful. The secret flavor. What's in them? I don't know. Celebrations. It's a secret.
Mark is back on today. Be listening for him at 2 o'clock on 105.9 The X, and we will be back next week. And we'll talk about the Four Nations tournament, I'm sure. That'll be one of the lead topics. And
yeah, you know what's weird now, Tim, is for the next 2 weeks, we have no Penguins, no Pirates, no Steelers.
Yeah, it's dark around here for the next couple of weeks.
Oh, and not just because of no Penguins, no Pirates, no Steelers. It is grim right now. Absolutely grim.
Yeah, the only thing dark would be if we actually talked about them.
Well, we got it. What choice do we have?
So that's coming up. Mark's going to be on at 2 o'clock today, 2 until 6. And make sure you check us out here and the Mad Monday podcast, too. If you missed it, it's a good podcast. Mark did it all from the Circle K in Imperial.
Strange things were afoot, Tim.
This is Madden and Benz Unfiltered, brought to you by Bella Construction.